Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Red Path. My name is Ryan. This here is Dara. Dara actually just got back from a GT over in, or is a super major over in Bristol in the United Kingdom. He actually did pretty well, going, is it 3-2?
3-2, yeah, yeah.
Three
Pretty
two,
pretty
which is,
consistent, I would say, is the word I would use.
and that's like this is your first big major in a while, though, right?
Since Manchester, yeah, since
Since
March.
Manchester,
Yeah.
since March. Okay, yeah. So, but it's your first time in this current iteration of the meta,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
we have a whole new world right on the horizon for us coming up here, and hopefully this Thursday, which we will be talking about in great detail. So make sure you guys are staying tuned for that. But anyways, we're going to get back into the topic of this video. We're going to kind of do a recap of Dara's adventure flying over to the UK and trying his hardest to demolish the meta there in Bristol. So Dara, how are you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm good. It's great to be sitting down to chat again, talking more Red Path goodness, talking Nongron shenanigans. The amount of people as well. First of all, awesome for everyone who came up and was like, "Hey, love the channel." Really nice to like get that support. But like, so many people came up and they were just like straight away being like, "How's Nongron doing?" I'm just like, "All right, bro." Which is cool. It's nice to see that it's catching hold, and that I suppose it's got something of a cult following at this point. There was a lot of World Eater players there. I think there was 11 in total. Out of I think there was 266 people showed up to Bristol, so it was quite a big event. And of the 11 World Eater players, I believe there was four non-grons in the field, which is awesome. It's really cool to see people experimenting with that.
I could safely say you're the leader of that movement at this point.
I mean, I'll take that crown for sure. But some of the non-ground lists were really cool. A lot of them were like iterations of what I ran in Manchester. So like the Demon Prince with all the jackals kind of a build.
Hmm.
And then there was some that were a bit more out there. I think there was a non-ground list with either double Molar or double Forge. But I was like, that's pretty cool. I think the majority were running the Demon Prince, which is definitely good tech. But I dropped him for this event because I was kind of thinking in this meta, so the meta that is just finishing. You and me have been back and forth a lot about this. That the Demon Prince just didn't quite have the value that he did in the January to April kind of meta, where there was a lot more like proliferation of AP2. I feel, and then with Custodes kind of dying a death and Orks rising up and CSM rising up, I was kind of thinking to myself like, maybe it's time to switch it around and go with something a little bit different, something a bit more reactionary to combat armies. So I kind of ended up going with something like that. But yeah, the event was awesome. It was really well run. It was part of the UKTC circuit, which is my personal favorite way to play 40k. It's a very good balance of shooting and melee terrain layouts. I do think GW and WTC kind of favor melee a little bit too much, so this gives like a nice balanced approach. I know a lot of people think UKTC is a bit of a shooting gallery. Um, it doesn't really feel like that. I really like the staging points on the maps as well. And yeah, they did a great job of running the event. It was in a lovely part of Bristol on the university campus, which was surrounded by trees, which is really nice to see. But if you have hay fever, not so good. So halfway through game one, I lost all sense of vision and smell as my hay fever kicked in and nearly killed me. But yeah, it was good. I went there by myself actually this time. There was no one else from the channel, no friends from Ireland coming over with me. So that was a little bit like, oh, I've got no one to hang out. But as we get into the video, I will explain how I was adopted by a group of people there, which was really nice. But yeah, so
Well,
overall, really, really good fun. Happy to go 3-2. Was kind of quietly hoping for a 4-1 finish, but the UKTC is extremely competitive. It's actually really rare to get like what I would call like an easy game in the UKTC. Someone where you're like, oh, this guy like hasn't played that much Warhammer. I'm gonna like curb stomp him. Everyone is kind of like at the low bar there. I would say is the equivalent of like the high bar in some other metas. So it's a very very competitive kind of scene. So yeah, great to be
yeah,
back there and great to be hanging out.
yeah, I can definitely agree with. I think you and I were going through the roster a little bit beforehand, and specifically some of your opponents too. They definitely seemed like you couldn't read them because they just were so like variable and like kind of what their performances were before this tournament that you just had to assume they were really good players, or they just straight up were really good players later on
Yeah.
when you played against them. Let's take us through your list though, because I
Yeah,
think
cool.
a lot of people are curious about your current iteration of your non-grind. I don't think it's been super published yet.
Yeah, I haven't really talked about this one. I kind of wanted to keep it under wraps until after the event. I have been talking a lot about it in our Patreon competitive Discord. And one of our Patreons, Danny D, he had been repping this list a lot because he had found good favor with. I think he went like something like 15-1 with the list, and I had similar success in my practice games. I went like 12-1, I think it was in the end, losing only to Black Templars because I played like an absolute turnip in that practice game. But yeah, so it came about in kind of a funny way. I was sort of looking for inspiration for writing a list for this event, and I was looking through all my old lists on Battlescribe, being like, man, it sure was fun when I could bring Leviathans. And I stumbled upon my list that I brought to Warhammer Fest in like April of last year. And it was basically like a Berserker spam list with a Dreadclaw and some 8-bound and things like that. And I was like, you know what, actually, there was a conversation happening in the Patreon chat, and they were kind of talking about how people thought that our points currently were much higher than they used to be. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try and see if that's true. And I ported that list into a 10th edition format, obviously dropping the Dreadclaw. And I found that actually that list was pretty cheap compared to what it had been. So I was like, okay, maybe I can work with this. So I was like tweaking things around, being like, all right, how can I move these? What can I do to replace the Dreadclaw? Blah, blah, blah. And what I came up with was basically like I don't know if I want to call it Berserker Horde, but it was definitely Berserker heavy. And a lot of my opponents in my practice games just called it Blood Surge Hell because
It's
that's what I did to people. And yeah, it is
and
Blood
it
Surge Hell.
it happened, didn't it? It
It
happened a little
happened.
bit,
It happened
right?
a lot, and it happened in the tournament as well. So yeah, to run you through it, it's got Invocatus, it's got Khorne, it's got the Berserker Glaive Mo, so the kind of classic trio there. But it actually has another Master of Executions. This one has got Battle Lust. I affectionately call him Horny Mo.
Yep.
And what that does for anyone who doesn't know is it gives them a free heroic intervention, which we've talked about it on the channel a little bit. It doesn't. You don't actually get to use it that much against good players because they will respect it. But what it does do is it allows you to control areas of the board by threatening the heroic. I think you put it really well in a previous video when you said you just set up the berserkers with him next to your exalted 8-bound, and they're basically like bouncers for the exalted 8-bound. They're like, if you want to come here, you're gonna have to deal with us. And it was really, really effective at locking armies out of the game. Obviously, if you're playing into a shooting army, it doesn't come up as much, but it just means that you kind of have a berserker squad with a good character that you can use as an early trade piece instead of this thing that kind of locks down the board.
Yep.
So those were the characters. Then we had two 10-man jackal squads. We had three 10-man berserker squads. We had a 3-man 8-band squad, a 3-man exalted squad, a 6-man exalted squad, two rhinos, and a unit of spawn. And that was the list.
Sounds like a spicy list. Yeah, I really like the inclusions people are starting to have. Like if I was running even 25 or 30 berserkers, having that access to the free heroic intervention is really cool because we're already like a very heavy board control army. Like we want to sit in the middle of the board and we want to own it for the first 3 turns of the game.
Yeah.
Turns 4 and 5, that's where it starts to get sketchy. But having access to the Horny Mo allows you to set up really cool plays and be able to protect those assets that would normally like make what you'd consider World Eaters to be a glass cannon army because you have your 8-bound running around. They're really expensive, really easy to die. But if you just have them hanging out next to their little bouncer buddy, then you can actually help keep those assets alive longer and
Yeah.
kind of just be way more threatening than you normally would be able to because
I mean, you can
spending
just,
two spending two
spending
CP on
2 CP is rough for it,
is
but when you can get it for
rough
free, it's real good,
because
especially when it's a fight first character with precision and dev and a whole
oh
berserker
yeah, I mean
squad. It's so
I,
good.
I've won games from just normal heroic interventions, but
Mm-hmm.
there's been a lot of games where that's just not an option because World Leaders are such a CP hungry army, right? We're +1 to wound every turn. We're re-rolling our 8 dice every turn. Specifically in this meta too, against a lot of the top armies, we're saving that 2 CP for -1 damage. So we can't afford to just be trying to heroically set up heroic intervention play. So
Yeah.
opening that up is actually quite huge right now with
Yeah.
how prevalent melee is in the meta.
I mean, that was kind of the idea. It was like it was a good counter to Green Tide, because not that I played Green Tide, but my plan was to kind of scout a Jackal squad forward and scout these guys forward and basically say, if you want to teleport into my face, you're gonna have to charge the Jackal squad. But if you charge the Jackal squad, I'll immediately heroic with the Moe squad, which is like 2 inches behind them. So that was cool. It was obviously it's an okay way of like kind of messing around with bully boys. You can sort of like push a ton of berserkers into the unit to mess with their pylons and stuff. And then obviously into CSM, Renegade Raiders, which are pretty combat heavy as well. It does kind of threaten them too. So I thought it was going to be pretty relevant for the meta. And then the rest of the list kind of functions as like intense pressure because you've got your early wave, you've got plenty of trash to just put out early in the form of the jackals and the spawn to do your usual kind of like shoot me off, I'm going to stick you this objective. Then you can choose. You can either kind of like drip feed your berserkers in 1 or 2 units at a time, or in as was the case in some of my games, you just go gung ho and like send 30 of them into your opponent's face and basically say like, all right, do you have 3 units which can one tap each of these berserker squads? Because if you don't, they're going to be blood surging all over the place. And I feel like, I don't know, blood surge just seems to work really well for me. It might just be how I kind of like move it or position it or something, but it's actually just really hard to play around that much blood surge, especially when you play it around objectives and stuff like that, because you're basically just saying like, all right, I'm going to put these guys here. You got to take them off the objectives. If you don't, they're going to be running around the place, blah, blah, blah. It's all really good. And then, of course, you've got a big Exalted Ape Man brick, which you can do lots of things with. And the 3-man can just deep strike, start on the board, whatever you want it to do. It was like a list that I felt like was a great toolbox because it had a lot of tricks. It had a lot of like redundancy that maybe an Angron list wouldn't normally have because there's just so many
Yep.
units on the board. And I think it was the first time since I started playing 10th edition that I didn't feel like I was running out of stuff too early, which was nice.
How did you feel about? I know because it was also the first time you played with Spawn, correct? Like at an event. How did that feel?
I've played with them a couple of times, but not at a major event. I would say, um, they're they're really good. I mean, they're really useful. They kind of fill a similar role to jackals, but are slightly different. You can be a little bit more comfortable with pushing them onto an objective because sometimes they just live. And in the event, sometimes they did just live, and my opponents were like, "What do you mean 4-up, feel no pain?" At one point, I did ramrod them into Gaz and 6 Meganobs. And it was not easy for those Meganobs to kill them, I'll tell you that much.
Or did you pop -1 damage too? Just
No,
to.
no, I wasn't that rude. I
Okay.
wasn't that rude, but it was pretty
The
funny. It was
disrespect.
yeah, no, they were good. I would say. I mean, like they're brilliant on some of the UKTC maps. You can put them in reserve and walk them onto an objective in like turn 2 or something like that, which is real nice. But most of the time, yeah, they were just kind of like they were probably most common. My first thing that I put on an objective and just said like, deal with it. You're gonna have to overcommit, and then I'm gonna sticky this thing. But yeah, I enjoyed them. I would say.
That's good. Well, how about we start talking about your games?
Yeah, let's do that. So game one, we were playing on Dawn of War. Horrible, horrible, horrible deployments.
This is a bad one.
Yeah, it's a real rough one for the world leaders. We're playing priority targets as well. Another mission we do not love.
Not a great one.
Nope. And I was playing Josh with his demons. Um, Josh was awesome. Plot twist, spoiler alert. Josh basically adopted me for the weekend after our game. Him and his friend group, they kind of like so our game was over real quick, real quick. So we had a lot of time to kill before round two. So we were just kind of hanging out, and his friends were awesome as well. Also, spoiler, I play one of his friends later on in the tournament, but we'll get to that. And yeah, we just had a great time. He was a lovely dude, and his list was cool. It was Shalaxi, Be'lakor, Kairos. Then there was 3 Nurgling squads. There was 2 big Blood Crusher bricks. There was what else was there? There was a Beast of Nurgle, and I think
And then
that
I
was
think
pretty much
Ren
it.
Masters too, right?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, crucially, 2 of the Renmaster, Bloodmaster. I don't know the guys in the chariots.
Ren Master, I think.
That one, yeah, the guys that make the Blood Crushers go crazy. So it's demon lists are weird these days. I feel. But this isn't. You were saying this wasn't a particularly like uncommon list. Like you kind of played this variant before, right?
Yeah, you're either gonna have full monster mash right now, um, because the lesser demons really aren't it, or you're gonna have half commit to monster mash with Ren Masters paired with Skull Crushers. And
Yeah.
you'll see 12 to 18 Skull Crushers with a few big boys, or almost all big boys and no Skull Crushers. So yeah,
Yeah.
this is pretty standard. The
Yeah.
only inclusion that's not super common anymore is Kairos. I know some people are just going straight with Great Unclean Ones instead now for that slot,
Yeah,
which
I did think Kairos was maybe didn't have a
he's
huge impact in this game, but also didn't need to. So this game was one of the most humbling 40k experiences I've had in a while. So you and me, we've been talking about this matchup since I got the pairing,
yeah,
and
you got like 3 or 4 days, right?
yeah, we had like 4 days to hash it out, and you being a demons player and quite familiar with the army, and me playing some demons on the side as well, we both kind of knew what was going on here, and I was expecting like the kind of common play of the demon player picks up Bellicor, with the Realm of Chaos, and he deep strikes Bellicor using the 3-inch stratagem, and then he puts the Skull Crushers next to Bellicor, 6 inches away from me, and gets some nice 5-inch charges. So in this game, Josh went first, which is good because it means they can't realm in turn one. So that was nice. And he basically just pushes the Nurglings forward and kind of like blocks me in, as would normally happen. So I push out. I push up. Actually, the Glavemo squad pushes actually quite far onto the left, the kind of safe objective on UKTC. I'll have pictures and deployment stuff coming up as well while we talk about this. But
So, did he get out of his Rhino?
he did, yeah. So the Rhino on that map, I always deploy in the little rune on the bottom left, and then just like catapult a squad out, and then usually another squad hops in. So they ran out because it's a very safe objective, and I knew they couldn't really be touched for a while, and they just obviously massacred a Nurgling squad. And then I had some Jackals and some, I think maybe Invocatus go into the middle Nurgling squad as well and wipe them. Um, and then basically what I did was I spent a lot of time moving and doing my consolidations correctly to set up the anti-Bellicor deep strike screen, which was basically
Yep.
just like the wall of jackals, like you were saying, correctly placed to make this massive bubble around as much of my army as I possibly could, so that I could defend and make sure Bellicor couldn't 3-inch deep strike anywhere in the majority of my force. The problem here was, well, it's a slight problem. So I pushed the spawn up on the right, towards that objective to deal with the Nurglings there. What I should have done was push them to the left, like back towards that screen, because the one thing that I didn't expect is what Josh did was at the end of my turn, I was like, "Do you want the Realm of Chaos?" And he said yes, and he did not pick up Bellicor. And I was like, "Oh no, what's going on?" He picked up Shalaxi, which I was already like, "Oh, what's about to happen?" And he picked up a Skull Crusher brick. And then in his turn, he sent Bellicor flying straight forward and advanced him, got a big 5 on the advance, and Bellicor landed like right in my deployment zone. And I was just like, oh no. And then Shalaxi spawns next to Bellicor, 6 inches away from my home field objective.
Oh no.
And the Skull Crusher spawn on the other side of Bellicor, facing my Jackal wall, basically. At this point, I realized I was about to get Shalaxi straight in the ass in turn two. And I did. I did. Because what was facing her was my 6-man Exalted 8-bound brick, who were just like, oh no, this is not what we had planned at all. So, yeah, not great. It was a moment of like, at this moment, it was so funny when Josh made that move and pushed Bellicor forward. He like looked me in the eye and he was like, "You weren't expecting that, were you?" And I was like, "Nope, no, I was not."
He's just committing 1,000 points straight into a world leader's face. That's
Yeah,
that's pretty brave.
yeah. He was just like, you know what? The only way I think he said like basically, if I respect you too much, you'll win. But if I just choose to go hard into you and go full aggro, I win. And yep, that's what happens. Basically, um, so Shalaxi actually shot one of the Berserker squads on my home field who surged in front of the 8-band to kind of like be like, we can do it, we can block. And they did like 4 wins to Shalaxi and got all picked up. And yeah, basically the Crushers and Bellicor like ran into, are not, oh yeah, no, Bellicor did because he did the advance and charge on him.
Yep.
They charged my Jackal line, and because I hadn't spaced my jackal line far enough away from the meaty goodness behind the jackal line. The skull crushers obliterated the jackals with the mortal wounds and then piled into the guys behind, picked them up too, and I was just like, oh god, I'm losing everything immediately. This is real bad. So I pretty much knew that I was going to lose the game at the bottom of Josh's turn too. But I was like, okay, let's see what I can kind of fight out of this corner. So I sent Karen squad, I think it was, into Shalaxi just because I was full panic mode at this point. I was like, I should not have done that. Shalaxi was like squatting on my home objective. I was just like, I need to get this monster out of here. Send Karen and the boys
At
in.
that point, that's his objective now. You can go find a new one.
Exactly. I should have not done that. And then I charged like the Skull Crusher brick in the middle. I charged Be'lakor with I can't remember what I charged Be'lakor with. Maybe it was like Invocatus and some other stuff or something. But yeah, so picked up most of the Skull Crushers there, or Blood Crushers, whatever they're called. Karen got interrupted on. Shalaxi ripped him a new one. He fought a death and like took her down to like, I think it was like 9 wounds or something. He actually did
That's
like
pretty good,
it was
actually.
pretty
That's
good.
really
Yeah.
good.
It was not bad at all. Now she was already damaged from the first Berserker squad that she had charged would fight first.
Okay.
But the Exalted picks up the Blood Crushers, and I just kind of did what I could to clear out the middle. Glavemo actually came in from the left at this point and picked up a Blood Throne, which I was like, okay, nice. Actually, yeah, that was what happened. He split. So his boys killed the Blood Throne, and Glavemo piled into Be'lakor and killed him, which was pretty cool. So I was like, take that, funny wingman. No more teleport for you. At this point, it was like a done deal, though. I was just like fighting for pride. So then
It seems like you're still keeping it pretty even, like
oh no,
points wise.
I lost so much stuff in his turn too, and I was fully locked into a quarter of the board while he controlled the rest of it. Kairos was just kind of like flying around doing some stuff as well. He didn't have a crazy big impact on the game, I would say, mainly because he just didn't need to. You know, some like nerdlings like.
Do you think we respected? Do you think we respected Kairos a little too much then?
No, I just don't think Kairos needed to do any work. I think he was happy laughing at the back and saying, yeah, things are good for me. So yeah, then basically Josh hits me with his second wave, picks up pretty much most of my army at that point with a second Blood Crusher brick. Shalaxi is just running a train through my backline. She picks up like all the Exalted at this point. I'm just like, oh god, please let this giant woman go away from me. There's like a rhino on my safe objective on the left, like quaking in its boots because it knows that it's the next target for Shalaxi. And then Kairos kind of walks into the middle and he like blasts some berserkers. He kills a good few of them or whatever. And then in my next turn, I have Glavemo run into Kairos and he picks him up as well, which I was just like, that was like literally the only good things that happened to me was Glavemo killed Kairos and Be'lakor, and that was like it.
I mean, that's like Glavemo's like 130 points, killing 800 points of models. That must feel pretty good, though. Oh no, Greater Demons are dirt cheap. I forget. No, that's not 800 points of models. That's like maybe 6.
Yeah, but it was good for him. But I had nothing to deal with the second Blood Crusher brick, which was just like stampeding through my deployment zone at this point as well, and I was just completely out of assets as well. So then I was tabled in Josh's turn 4. And I also just like had not been able to hold primary, had not been able to score many secondaries, so I just got fucking dumpstered. It was like, and it was really, honestly, it sounds bad, but I was laughing the whole time. Like Josh was like such a good dude, you know, he was really, really fun to play against. I know he's probably going to be watching this as well, and he's definitely going to comment like talking shit about me because he went back and he watched the Demons or our faction thing where he was like, you should feel bad if you lose to Demons. But yeah, man, it was like, honestly, he fucking outplayed me so good. And when he did that move with Be'lakor at the start of the game, I was just like, dude, nice, you know?
That's the thing with Demons. They got a lot of tricks. They are very asymmetrical army and really allow for player skill expression.
Oh, absolutely. And Josh is a very, very good player. I expect him to probably top the UKTC for Demons this year. He had a very good showing at Oxford and will probably do very well at the remainder of the events. But yeah, great game. We were done in like 90 minutes. So we had like a very, very long morning break, during which time we kind of hung out and just chatted about the game and stuff. But yeah, really good fun. It was 100 to 33 was the final score.
Ooh, and I mean
Yeah,
that's it's priority target. So if you're gonna get bodied in the first few turns, usually that score ends up being pretty bad.
yeah,
And I think we were discussing ahead of time, like for people who don't understand, like Dawn of War is a horrible mission for world leaders. Yes, it's one of the missions where we're like we don't have to run across the map, right? They're right in front of us. But Dawn of War is really hard to protect yourself from angles on. It's really hard to screen your opponent out on because you have to screen out a whole 6 foot board now. Demons and priority targets, that's like one of their more preferred missions because of the uppy downies. They can just score 25 points in the last turn, especially if they go second. There's nothing you can really do to stop it. So I think we were talking like we were happy that you'd ideally be getting this mission out of the way early.
yeah, yeah.
Hoping
It's
that you
it's
weren't going to
always
be
a rough
playing.
one to start because UKTC always starts with this mission. It's always a rough
Oh,
one
does it?
to have up first. I'm kind of used to playing it at this point, but yeah, it's definitely of all the missions in the pack, it's the toughest one for world leaders. But like, man, that could have been like search and destroy, or our most favorite match. I was always losing that game. Like, there's
Right.
no excuses. I was just fucking. I was outplayed. I'm so happy to say it as well because like, honestly, Josh deserved that win, and he deserved to win as big as he did because I just didn't. So basically, what I was saying about the spawn was if I just move them to the left, Be'lakor can't advance in there because the spawner there, he can't land on them,
I
and then
wouldn't have
stuff
expected
can't.
that either.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't. I was like, as I kept saying to Josh, I was like, I thought you would do the normal Demons player thing and pick up Be'lakor. Just didn't happen. Yeah,
All right. Well, we can head over to game two if you'd like.
we can.
Sounds
Yeah, yeah.
like it was a pretty
After
dramatic game one.
it was super dramatic. It was like one of the most dramatic games I played in a tournament
And
for a while.
I was asleep for this, so like I didn't even get to see all like
Yeah,
the results in the Discord until
yeah.
probably
So,
about
game number
midway
two,
through this game.
I was playing on Search and Destroy, was taking holes, so a pretty good matchup for us.
That's probably our best. That's probably our
There
best mission.
is, yeah, there's two Search and Destroy taking holes in here, so it's good
Wow.
times. So I was playing James, and he was playing Necrons. So after getting my butt torn apart in game one, seeing my game two pairing was into Necrons, I was just like, oh, spread me more. Like, this is gonna be fucking rough.
What
So
what specific Necrons was he playing?
this was where it gets spicy. Yeah. I opened up his list and I was like, all right, Canoptic Court. And I was like, nope. I was like, Hypercrypt? Nope. Awakened Dynasty, baby. The index detachment, which was wild.
Nice. I mean,
Yeah.
that takes guts.
Actually, you know what? There was quite a few Awakened Dynasty players here this weekend. Apparently, that is like coming back into popularity now. I don't
Wraiths
know
are
why.
inevitably getting a points increase. Maybe they're
Yeah.
just prepping for it.
Yeah. So, James's list was like there was like a lot of shit in there, which I was like, I have no idea what this does. There was multiple named characters that I hadn't heard of before. Some storm dude, some dude who like hulks out in close combat once per game. There was the big walking robot thing, Canoptic Doomstalker, maybe
Doomstalker, yeah.
the
They
shooting
have
one.
the re Okay, yeah, that's the
Yeah,
Doomstalker.
the guy who overwatches on fives. There was a Hexmark Destroyer, which actually was in a lot of people's lists this weekend as well. Pretty cool. He gets like free Overwatch and hits on twos in Overwatch because why not?
Oh
And
yeah, that dude's annoying.
yeah, he had an enhancement on him to give out. I think it was +1 to hit to everyone within 6 inches as well, which is quite good.
Oh, for
Um,
yeah, I'm assuming he's spamming destroyers then, right?
yeah, there was quite a few destroyers and there was two Doomsday Arcs as well, and there was a Void Dragon as well, and a bunch of other stuff. There was like
Sounds
Immortals,
good.
there was Warriors, there was Scarabs. There was a
Like
lot
a
of
very
Death Marks as
flavorful
well. Actually,
list.
yeah, it was cool.
It's nice
So
to see something not get spammed into oblivion with Necrons, so that
yes,
must be
for sure.
refreshing.
I went up to the table. I was like, "What up, James?" First thing I asked him was like, "Where are the rates?" And he said, "I literally can't buy them, no matter how hard I try. They are not in stock anywhere." I was like, "You know what? Fair enough." um, so this
That's a
was pretty
valid
cool.
answer.
Yeah, very valid answer. This was a cool game. So I went second again. Plot twist: I will go second in every game except for the last one, which is we'll get to when we get to. But yeah, so I was pretty worried about the Void Dragon in this game because I don't really have like any answer to it, pretty much. But I knew I could kind of use my Exalted Ape Bound to sort of deal with him because I didn't have to worry about rates, which is what they normally have to go after in the Crons game. So that was good. Um, This one was pretty interesting. James actually like pushed quite aggressively in his opening turn. He kind of like pushed out quite a chunk of his army on one flank to try and get angles, which he got some, but I was really only giving him like very meaningless things, which I was like, I don't really care about this stuff getting shot. It's just there to bait angles and pull guys out. And he advanced like a sort of like phalanx of dudes towards the middle point as well. So there was like a lot of destroyers. There was the Stormlord guy who once per game just does this like area of effect mortal wound bomb. There was a bunch of immortals with him and a lot of like death marks and other stuff. So I went pretty hard back on my turn one. I had advance and charge and I think sustained hits up potentially. So I sent berserkers kind of wide in this one. I sent a squad like, so you had a Doomsday Arc on kind of like either corner. So I
Sure.
sent Zerks in that way, thinking like Zerks can probably kill a Doomsday Arc. Plot twist, they definitely cannot. It took Karn's squad like 3 turns to kill one, which was not great.
Really? Were you
Yeah,
even
yeah.
with plus one to wound and stuff?
Yeah, I had plus one to wound the first time, took it down to like it was low wounds, but then the problem is when you lose the strength bonus, the berserkers are like, we can't hurt this thing at all.
Yeah, and then they're
Um
regenerating too, which is
yeah,
really
yeah,
annoying.
it was tough. And then up the middle, I sent like the Exalted Ape Band and a bunch of other stuff. Um this one wasn't too bad because I was able to flip the middle pretty early, and kind of my Exalted Ape Band were, this was the 3-man squad, not the 6-man. They were in quite a like strong position to bait out something significant. And the main thing is here, I was just ramming things in front of the Void Dragon, being like, get away from me. I'm holding you back for as long as I can. Because my theory here was basically like, kill as much of his army before the Void Dragon properly gets into me. Um, and then I can deal with the Void Dragon. So eventually what happens is there's like a rhino blocking the way for the Void Dragon to get to my Exalted Ape Band. And I was like, all right,
Hell yeah.
this is going to be pretty good as long as my rhino doesn't die to the Void Dragon shooting him.
Oh,
And he didn't. He didn't die. He lived on like a couple of wounds, which then got plinked off by death marks. And I was like, okay, it's still not that bad because the Void Dragon has to make an 11-inch charge to hit my Exalted Ape Band. And he did. And in he went. I was like, oh, this could probably lose me the game if I lose a lot of Exalted Ape Band here. Thankfully, had 2 CP, -1 damage. The Void Dragon kills 1.5 Exalted Ape Band. They
did he
hit back.
sweep?
Um, no, he did the strike on them.
Strike.
Yeah, and I just got a little bit nutty with feel no pains and all that kind of
Love it.
stuff. Yeah,
Love it.
-1 damage as well was pretty useful. So they were kind of like nice. At this point, lots of things had been kind of like picking at the Void Dragon. Khorne had like taken some wounds off him with his plasma pistol. I'd thrown grenades at him a whole bunch. I tank shocked him at one point. So he was down to like 8 wounds. The Exalted Ape Bound took him down to like 4. And then Glavemo ran in. I literally hid Glavemo in my deployment zone until like turn 3. And then he just jumped out and like iced the Void Dragon. I was like, all right, nice. Now we can go in. So once he was down, I like really pushed hard. And I just kind of like took over the board. So that was pretty good. Imatech did his Mortal Wound thing. It actually just like kind of didn't really do anything. He low rolled on it basically. And then I think Orican was the guy who hulks out. I just killed him before he got to do anything because if he gets to juice up in combat, he gets pretty good. So ultimately, it wasn't too hard of a matchup, I would say. Like, Awakened Dynasty felt weird because it just didn't really do that much damage to me. You know?
Yeah, because the index attachment did kind of struggle with that. It was all about durability. Like it wants to attrition you out and say like you can't hurt me more than I can, or like yeah, like I'm gonna take less damage than I'm gonna do to you, even though it's not super great.
Yeah.
So it's all about reanimation to an Awakened Dynasty. So
Yeah, and there was like a lot of guys coming back. Oh yeah, that's the one thing I forgot. Imatech was with a brick of Lichguard, who I could not kill for hiding our money. It was just like,
I mean that was the thing that Awakened Dynasty did in the first meta was here's this
yep.
unkillable wall of Lich Guard and
Every turn,
you
I
know what?
would kill like
It's still
4.
good
Every turn, 4 would resurrect, and I would just be like, "We're back where we started."
because they still have like -1 to wound or something, right? If you're like stronger than their
Yes, yeah, they
toughness.
have the
So
warden thing or whatever it is.
incredibly obnoxious to get through them.
Yeah,
So
they were super rough. Eventually, I did get through them, but wow, it took a long time. They were like the last thing to die in the army. So yeah, that one finished. It wasn't like a crazy high score. It was 86-52. So I found in a lot of my practice games that was like I was getting high 80s. My opponent was getting somewhere in the 50s. So it was kind of like run of the mill. The list did what it was supposed to do. So that game I was quite happy with.
Yep. And I think your take on World Eaters 2 is a lot more of that mid-board grindy, like play
Yeah,
patient, play cagey, which will probably get you to that eight. It's really hard to get 100 points with that, unless
yeah,
like you have to be blitzing your opponent off the table turn one and just having a free game for 4 turns. That's how you get your 100 points as World Eaters.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's like a game which will give your opponent, or it's a list that will give your opponent some points and will grind out points for you, and that's basically what it did in at least two of my wins anyway. Um, so yeah, I was happy. Was happy to not get bodied by Necrons. A bit of faction that I've been struggling into recently, so it was
that's good.
nice. Cool to see a fresh list as well. So much weird shit going on in there, which I was just like, I don't know what's going on. I got overwatched so much in that game. It was crazy.
All of your opponents are probably saying the same thing about you. Like, what is going on? This is weird. What is
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Where's the big red man?
A lot of people were asking that question. So
All right, so that was it for game two. How about you move us on to game three, your last game of the day, right? How are
yeah,
you feeling at that point? Are you pretty exhausted, pretty tired?
no, I was okay. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't. I've kind of gotten past the whole exhaustion during tournament games.
That couldn't be me.
Yeah, I don't know. I just get like super high on the buzz of tournaments. I'm just like very excitable during an event, so it was all good. And again, I was hanging out with Josh and the boys, and we were all kind of going through like our games and stuff. So it was actually just like I can't say it enough. It was super nice to have like a group to chill with. So that was great. But yeah, so I went into game three. It was Crucible, the long hammer and anvil deployments. I think
Yeah.
that's what that one's called. Purge the foe. So Purge
Or-
is always an
Yeah.
interesting one. And I was playing into Jack and his orcs. A lot of orcs at Bristol. I was going to hit them at some point. And hitting them at 1-1, you never really know what kind of, like, when you're 1-1, you're like, man, I could be playing anyone at this point. So Jack was running Warhorde, I think it's called. The index
The
attachment.
index one,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
the index attachment's actually still really good.
Still super, super good. Yeah. And his list was pretty stacked, to be honest. It was pretty cool. So there was quite a lot of boys. There was a unit of regular knobs. There was a unit of mega knobs with Gaz. There was commandos. There was Snickrot. There was a bunch of trucks. There was what else was there? There was some grots, and the really big thing here was there was Mozrog, and there was a massive brick of the
The
Squighog
pigs.
Beast
Yeah.
Naga things, which I'm playing against in 10th edition, and boy, did they catch me on surprise. The unit
I
footprint on this as well, by the way. I don't think there's a unit footprint bigger than the space that these guys take up. Like,
no,
wow, it
I
was crazy.
I have so much beef playing against pigs. They're just so obnoxious.
Yeah,
The 5-up feel no pain, T7,
yeah,
especially Warhorde, -1 to wound too.
yeah,
Like they have access to that. They just don't die. And they kill everything.
yeah.
They're meant to be like the anti-vehicle, anti-monster thing, but they're also just like strength 7, AP 1, 2 damage, which just mulches Marines just fine with Lance. Like
Everything that you said there is what happened.
I
So again, in this game, I went second, which actually was like a pretty good thing here. So I tried to like psych him out and bait the wog nice and early. He didn't fall for it
nope.
because he has a brain.
Oh,
Jack was a really cool dude. I actually really enjoyed playing against him. He's very chill, real nice guy. And yeah, he basically like kind of pushed up slowly. He had the commandos and Snickrot just like strung across the entire board, preventing me from like really. I basically didn't get a scout because of where everything was positioned. And then in turn one, he was like, "Yeah, I'm just going to give you the commandos and just wall you into your deployment zone." I was like, "Yep, fair enough." And Snickrot was just doing some objective work in the middle. So I tentatively pushed out. I actually pushed a squad of Zerks into the commandos, the Hornimo squad, and a squad of Jackals as well. Also charged them so that they could. So the Zerks basically went up top to control my kind of safe objective, and the Jackals went into the middle to control the mid objective. So the way, because he had put his big squig unit inside the his big L. So I knew that they couldn't hit the Zerks as long as I positioned them a little bit far back from the wall. Like they just wouldn't be able to touch those berserkers. So the worst thing that was going to come into them was like maybe a unit of boys if he didn't
which
want to put
you'd
them anywhere
mop.
else, which is
Yeah.
fine because they've got fight first. Um, so they easily picked up the commandos. I actually made like quite a long charge into Snickrot and body slammed him with 2 spawn, which was real funny.
That's pretty funny. That's
It
see, that's why
was
we take spawn,
That's why
guys.
we take spawn. And it wasn't even close. You know, the spawn literally just ate him alive. It was good.
When you
Um,
box card the amount of attacks and just go
yeah,
from there.
no, I didn't boxcar. I think I got 13, but I had sustained up, and they sustained quite a few or something like that. It was good times. So yeah, then he doesn't walk in turn 2 either. Which I was like, come on, do it.
Just do it. Do it.
And we have a bit of a brawl in the middle. He kind of introduces the boys and he basically picks up a lot of my stuff. He brings in the knobs as well, who kind of get caught fighting both the jackals and the berserkers. Because of the way that they sort of like had to charge in that area, they needed to kill like both the squads. The berserkers fight first and kill quite a few knobs here, which was good. They also precision out the war boss, which was real good. That was really, really good. So the war boss not hitting into the Zerks meant that the Zerks basically lived. And the way he had to pull casualties, he wanted to kill the Jackals more because I think he had area denial. Um, so the Jackals get wiped out, and then the pigs are kind of like coming up, and I'm like, shit, these guys are going to hit me in next turn no matter what. Meanwhile, in the bottom corner, Gaz is like trying to walk up the board, but I'm just roadblocking him with rhinos and roadblocking him with spawn. At one point, Philip and his jackal squad walked in front of him and just said, like, we're not going to charge, but by God, are we going to get charged in the next turn? And they did.
I
Um,
yeah, which is a really cool tech to do. Like sometimes if you see a
yeah,
problem like that walking at you and you can move block,
yeah. So
I've
I was like, I'm
I've
move blocking this guy for as long as I can.
yeah, I've seen 10 Thunderwolf Cav before and I've just been like, I have 2 rhinos. That's 2 turns that you're not touching me.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
really good tech to do.
That's
So
pretty
really
much what I
awesome that you
did.
got to pull
Yeah,
that off. Such a
because I was like, I need to
problematic
keep
unit.
these guys out of the game for like as long as possible, or at least until the field of pain is gone. Also, like every truck in his army exploded in this game, which was quite funny. But yeah, like it just kind of very quickly becomes a mid-table brawl, as a lot of my combat games tend to do. And it was okay. Like my hit back picked up a lot of his kind of like random chaff stuff. The knobs got deleted down to like 2 guys who kind of just ran away for the rest of the game. And I basically picked up pretty much all the boys in this turn. There was one boy squad still inside a truck, and then I knew the Squighog boys were going to hit me in the next turn, and I was just like, all right, this is about to be rough. I had my rhinos like positioned quite aggressively forward as well. My exalted 8-bound were in the mix at this point too. So what happens is he calls Wog, and I'm just like, oh god, here we go. And I had been banking CP. I was sitting on 5 CP at this point. I was
Holy
just
shit.
like, all right, let's go. I'm ready for the Wog. And yeah, he goes in very hard. Mazrog and the boys charge my exalted 8-bounds. They charge the regular 8-bounds. They charge a rhino. Because he had Bring It Down as well, which was, it will come up later. And then Gaz finally breaks out of like Philip and the boys' jail and like manages to get down to an objective, where Karen and the boys were as well, and that I was not happy about. But I pop -1 damage. Oh yeah, before I pop -1 damage on the Exalted 8-bound, something way more important happens. I heroically intervene with Horny Mo, and he gets into Mazrog, and he one taps Mazrog, which I
Holy
was
shit.
like,
This
let's
isn't even
fucking
glaive
go.
mo.
Yeah,
How
not
many
even
wounds?
Glaive Mo.
Maz is like 8 wounds too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
With the
Big
feel no pain.
big sustain moments. I think I sustained 3 hits in that one.
Oof.
So yeah, he did that, and then the berserkers killed 2 of the pigs. Who Mazrog fought on death, and so did the pigs. Mazrog fighting on death did not kill the rhino, which was important because he had to bring it down. And then the pigs picked up a bunch of my zerks for having the audacity to punch them. So then I did -1 damage on the Exalted 8-bound, and the pigs could not kill them, which was good. And then the Exalted 8-bound fought back, and couldn't kill the pigs, which was bad. My regular 8-bound got massacred down to like 1 dude as well. And then Karen and the boys basically got lifted by Gaz and his boy, Meganobs. But a good chunk of them fought on death, and that was fine. I killed like 2 Meganobs, which was okay, including Karen's fight on death. So that wasn't too bad. Then I didn't like push too hard on my hit back because I was like, if I run into the Wog, it's just going to be bad. I just kind of tried to hard focus on picking up the pigs and picking up the other like random stuff that was going around scoring, and just leave Gaz alone for a while.
Which
Which was fine because eventually I did just pick up the pigs. The other 3 Exalted 8-bound went into them as well. And the other Berserker squad went into them too, and just like basically lifted them, which was fine. And then I was just like picking up the chaff around the board, which was okay too. Um, at this point, we're like going into turn 4, and I still had a good few functional assets. I still had like 2 relatively healthy Berserker squads, and I had more or less a full Exalted 8-pound squad. And Jack was basically down to like Gaz, some boys, a couple of straggling knobs, and a couple of trucks. So at this point, the game kind of flips in my favor because I draw behind enemy lines and capture, which I just go and do. Mo walks onto the objective and absolutely blitzes a run turret in the grots. And in the end of the game, he basically has to rush the mid with Gaz, which he does, and that's fine. And then I just collapse on Gaz and massacre him in the Mega Nubs. So in my turn 5, end up picking up Gaz, which feels good. So that one ended pretty good victory again, 86-58. So very similar score to the last game, kind of list functioning as it does. But yeah, was happy with that one.
Sounds like so far like this is the most value you've gotten out of Horny Mo too. Like, would you say MVP in this matchup?
I think the heroic into Mazrog and managing to snipe him out was probably what swung the game in my favor. Like that was super clutch. Yeah. That is also the only time that the heroic is going to come up. Plot twist. Because I played gun armies for the rest of it.
Yep.
But
So
yeah,
now you're two
now I'm
one now,
2-1.
right?
Yeah, yeah. So now
So
I'm really in the anything bracket.
yeah, so that's like somebody could have just gotten bodied who's also a monster playing another monster. Now you're just gonna get cheek
Yep,
spread again,
yep,
or like literally anything.
yeah.
Um, so how are you feeling at the end of the night though? You
I was like pretty happy that I managed to beat Crons and Orks. They were kind of like 2 armies which I had been sort of like, oh god, I really don't have a great game into them. So managing to beat them was nice. Um, so I was like feeling pretty decent until the pairings went up that night, and I saw I was playing Tau, which is always a tough match. And I was like looking at it, I was like, Will B, why am I familiar with this? And I was like, Will is one of the boys that I was hanging out with. And I think he was playing Tau. And I'm pretty sure he was playing Kaoyan. There can't be that many players playing Kaoyan, so I better check his list. And I opened it up and it was like Kaoyan. And I was like, ah, I'm in deep shit here because Will is
is
a
it
very good player.
five? How many people in that friend group were there? Like
There was like 4 or 5 in total, yeah.
out of 280 players, you got
Yeah,
him.
I got both, and similar to Josh, Will was an extremely good player. So Will had brought a really cool Kaoyan list. It's got a lot of the kind of classic hits for Tau at the minute. So there was 30 Breachers, there was 2 Devilfish, 2 Riptides, 2 Hammerheads, Stealth Suit, not a Stealth Suit, Ghost Keel, some Stealth
Yeah.
Suits, Pathfinders, Dark Strider, Shadow Sun, um, all the kind of stuff you would expect out of Tau. It was Crucible, it was Scorched Earth, which Scorched Earth kind of rough for us, to be honest.
That
It's
It's
difficult to
another
do the
pretty.
burns. Yeah, and I knew it was going to be difficult in this game. Went second, pretty rough because he scout moved right into my face, so my first turn was nulled. One really pretty crucial bit here, he scout moved a Pathfinder squad in a way where I could not scout my regular 8-bound anywhere that they weren't going to get shot. So I was like, fuck, I misdeployed basically. And I hadn't left enough space in one of the buildings to let them jump into it. So that was not great. I lost the 3 8-bound to a Riptide shooting downtown from deployment zone to deployment zone. They got
That
lifted
feels
for free,
bad.
which is rough. Really,
For,
really rough. Very important trade piece in that game. I lost immediately for nothing. I obviously got no scout moves because he just completely walled me out. And then he went first and moved his wall right into my face. Um, so pretty funny. I drew, I think it was Storm Hostile, the one where you have to like get onto the points that the enemy controls. And I ran Invocatus into some stealth suits and easily bodied them. Um, and I was going to run 10 Jackals into a Pathfinder squad that were kind of like squatting in an objective. And then Will used Votann grenades, which is a funny one. It's 1 CP in the charge phase. It reduces your charge by 2 inches, but it also forces you to take a battle shock test. Now I was like an inch, just over an inch away from the Pathfinder, so I was like, well, I'm not going to fail
Oh
the charge.
no.
But obviously, he did it with the intention of being like, if I battle shock you, you're not going to get Storm Hostile
Storm.
because you won't control it. Um, and I got battle shocked by the photon grenades. The Jackal squad pick up the Pathfinders, but I don't get any points for getting on the objective, which is also super relevant because when those Jackals get shot off the objective in the very next turn, they can't sticky it either because they're still battle
That's
shocked.
huge.
Huge 8 point swing right there. 8 point swing from 1 CP battle shock.
It's
I
pretty
felt
good
like I was playing
CP.
Dread Talons. It was, and we were both like laughing about it. We were like, "This is so wild," you know, super super wild.
So
So
disrespectful to the
it
Jackals
was
too on his
real
part too.
disrespectful. Yeah, real disrespectful. Um, Devilfish zooms up, dumps out 10 breachers right in front of Invocatus. He stands there and says, "What?" and takes 2 wounds.
I've had that happen to me too. It's pretty
It's so
funny.
wild. It's so wild.
A 2-up save into AP1, anything could happen.
Yeah. And then elsewhere, he kind of moves up on the far flank, but like I'm still completely hidden. I'm just like not giving him anything to shoot at. So that's kind of what happens in that turn. The one thing he does is he puts out Darkstrider because we're playing on hidden supplies as well. So there's the split objectives in the middle. He puts Darkstrider on the one closer to him, and he starts burning the objective. And we measured out, and he's like, "I'm only doing this because I'm forcing you to try and make the charge to stop the burn, but it's a long charge. So if you fail it, you're giving me something for free." Which I was like, "Yep, really good play." Forcing my hands. So in the next turn, the 3 8 bounds, exalted 8 bound even, jump out of the building that they were hiding in, and they go to charge the breachers who tried to kill Invocatus. They do combat embarkation and jump back in the Devilfish, so they charge the Devilfish instead. They kill the Devilfish and they pile into the breachers, which I was like, nice. If you fail that no fallback check, you are so dead because they didn't have a Fireblade in that squad. So I was like, all right, come on, boys, you can do it. Um, then Invo kind of just like runs back into his deployment zone because there's like some Pathfinders that have been, or not Pathfinder, stealth suits that have been picked up. And I was like, I need to screen those guys out because if they come in and they get like the marker lights into my ass, it's going to be really bad. Um, and then elsewhere, I went for the risky charge to kill Darkstrider. I put a squad of Berserkers with, I think that was Hornimo's squad, and I put the 2 spawn there as well. So I fail the charge on the Berserkers, I CP rerolling, and I get an 11. And no
Nice.
matter what way we looked at it, the Berserkers were going to fully touch Darkstrider, so the spawn were caught out in the open. Nothing to do because they couldn't make the charge. There's no one else to charge. So I lose the spawn, but I kill Darkstrider, and I'm sort of like in this really awkward spot right in front of him on an objective where I'm like, shooting this squad is going to be a pain in the ass because of Blood Surge. And then flips to his turn, it is a pain in the ass. They blood surge into, I think, a breacher squad and kill most of them. There's only like 4 berserkers left because they got absolutely gunned by the breachers.
Sure.
But up in the top, the other breacher squad passes its leadership check, and then they zoom away. So I lose my 3 exalted 8 band to like a hammerhead and some other. There was a riptide gunning them as well.
Sure.
Um, at this point, it's like we've both been scoring really low on our secondaries, but Will has been scoring 10s on primary while I'm only getting 5s because he's just gunning me off objectives, which is the correct thing to do. Um, However, I see that he's like left an opening where I am going to ramrod my Exalted 8 band downtown, kill a Riptide, pile into a Riptide, pile into a Pathfinder squad. I'm like, that'll be 2 no fallback checks. That could be big. Could be really big, in fact. Um, so it flips to his turn at this point, and he fails the no fallback check with the Riptide, but passes it with the Pathfinders. Now, it didn't actually matter because he passed it with the Pathfinders, but one thing that we were like unsure about, and I'm pretty sure that it doesn't work this way, but I would love to hear other people and your opinion on this as well. So, um, recently I've seen a lot of people saying that the Riptide wouldn't have been able to shoot the Exalted 8 band because they're in combat with the Pathfinders as well. Now, the way I read Big Guns Never Tire is that he could do that, but we called a judge and the judge said he wouldn't be able to. So I don't know. I'm not really sure what the logic is around the ruling. I read Big Guns Never Tire again after the game because I'd seen a lot of people talking about it, especially in the World Eaters game on War Games Live. That was like happened recently. Anyway, it didn't matter because the Pathfinders passed their check and jumped out of combat. And then the Riptide gunned into the Exalted Ape Band and killed four of them, which I was like,
Ooh, that's a
ooh,
spike.
that it was a spike. Yeah, yeah, it was a spike, and I was like, that is tough. That is tough to handle.
Yeah, I'd be like, yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna lose like two and kill you, right? But
yeah,
not four, and then
yeah. They were also within six of the Devilfish that was in combat with the Glavemo squad, which was on one wound left and passed its leadership test, but then died in desperate escape, which
oh,
I
that's
was
funny.
like, that's pretty funny. And then Glavemo squad got guns, but because he didn't have the marker lights to put into them, so like quite a chunk of them lived, which was nice. So then they go into breachers in the next turn and body slam them. At this point, we're like getting towards the end of the game, and I've been pushed off the primary too much at this point. Like, as I said, I'm always getting fives and Will's always getting tens. So even though I made that play with the Exalted, which was quite nice, I thought, Will just hadn't made any other mistakes. You know, he was correctly positioned, correctly scoring. Both of our secondary scores are super low at the end of the game. I think it was like 23 and 21 was like our secondary scores. But Will outscores me on primary, and he finishes the game on 83 points to my 67. So was very very close, but
So sounds like
just
that
not enough.
that jackal play right at the beginning is probably what swung the whole tempo of the game. Wow, that's
It was that and mispositioning the eight bands. I think if those two things go a little bit differently, I'm in with a better chance. I don't know if I'm winning that game, to be honest. Will was
I
just the better player.
I'd probably say if you had if you scored 8 extra points just cause, and
Yeah,
then you had a squad of 8 bound running around as an additional threat, that's a huge deal.
yeah, yeah. It would be losing the eight bound. I think is the big part there. Not having an early trade piece was pretty tough going. But yeah, it was a really fun game. I mean, it was a really interesting puzzle. It was extremely cagey. Like every turn, we were only letting each other damage what we wanted them to damage, which was really
And
cool. It was actually like probably the tightest game of the weekend in terms of like two people just being like Mexican standoff, just like, I'm not letting you do this stuff.
and that's how that matchup can go, especially like
Yeah.
if you have a really good Tau player staring at you, like they won't let you touch their good stuff until like turn 4 and 5. So you just gotta weather the storm.
Yeah.
And if it's Kalyan, then they're getting that's the index attachment one, right?
Yeah. Sustained after turn three.
Yep. So like they weather the storm, and then suddenly those broadsides start shooting, and 1/6 becomes 3 railgun hits, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh God.
Yeah.
And then they have dev wounds, and so
Yeah. It was because
that
what I
sounds
was
like it was a
hoping
really
was to like
enjoying.
push him really hard in turn one and two, but because he did the big Pathfinder wall, I just didn't have
Mhm.
the choice. I didn't have that option.
That's definitely a matchup where you want to go first,
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. Just to stop the scout wall running into
and
you.
you want to beat him to his like so you want to beat him so he's not getting benefits from his sustained hits before you're charging
Yeah,
him ideally.
yeah.
So it sounded like it was a very enjoyable game though.
It really was. It was like it was a real clean, real classic, kind of like the exact type of competitive game that I like to play, where it's like we're both respecting each other. We're like on that same dialogue page, I would say, where we're like having that conversation during the game, being like we're making sure that everything is correct and played as well as it possibly can be, which is super nice. But yeah, really great opponents and really nice to just like hang out with Will over the weekend as well, and the rest of the boys. Um, so at this point I'm 2-2, which is always a real scary place to be in tournaments because
You're
you
riding the
know
knife's edge.
yeah, I mean, Jack was messaging me saying I'm probably going to be fired from the channel. You had stopped speaking to me at this point, which I was just like, oh god.
I was on a side quest
Yeah, sure,
doing something else
sure,
really cursed. Maybe we'll talk about later.
yeah. So we go into game five, and I pair Votann.
Now,
I've got history here.
for those of you who aren't familiar with Dara and his relationship with Votann, it's not a good one.
Quite toxic, I would say. Yeah, quite an
Quite,
abusive relationship.
it's pretty abusive. Just go ahead and shoot him a message in the Discord and ask him what his thoughts are on Votann, and you'll hear all
Yeah.
about it.
So I was playing Derek, whose buddy is actually a big fan of the Red Path. So shout out. Derek was a lovely guy. He had, I would say, a fairly standard Vodan list. It was like double fort, double termies, double zerks, some warriors, tons of sags, some bikes, and then there was like these Thunderkin dudes as well,
Yeah,
which
they're like Eradicator dudes.
yeah, basically. We're playing on Search and Destroy, taking holds. Strong,
It's
strong,
real
strong at
again.
first. Yeah,
That's probably our best mission
yeah, yeah.
combo.
So I finally roll first here. Now I told Eric before the game, I was like, man, this one's yours. Like I never beat Votann. You know, I was like, I'm gonna lose this game 100%. Like don't worry about it. He was like, I play World Eaters all the time and I always lose to them. I was like, nah, you're gonna beat me. Like it's like I was just like, I can't beat Votann. I don't know why. So I went first. I rolled up advance and charge, and I rolled up +2 move, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to beat them anyway. I'm just going to full send, and I did. I sent 6 Exalted 8 bounds, Invocatus, the Hornymo squad, and the 3 regular 8 bounds into his army in turn
Jesus,
one.
that's like 1,500
It
points.
was like a good chunk of my army. I was just like, you know what? I'm here for a good time, not a long time. And it's Search and Destroy. I was like, I'm just going in. I don't care. So I multi-charged one sag with Invo and 3 8 bounds, and I multi-charged the other sag with Mo and the Exalted 8 bound, who would also multi-charge a land fort. Um, so the Exalted 8 bounds pick up the sag, the regular 8 bound pick up the other sag. The Berserkers pile into their Berserkers who fall out,
Ooh.
and Invo piles into the other Berserkers who fall out. Both those squads wipe the Zerks down to like one guy in each squad, and
Yeah,
only two
that's
of them in each squad fight on death, which is big, real big.
ooh.
Yeah. Now the two that fight on death take Invo down to 1 wound, which was like ow. But then the other ones only kill like 2 berserkers, which is
Oh, I okay. I thought it was in reverse.
no, no, no,
I thought you were saying your berserkers got wiped out from two guys
no,
fighting on death, and I was
no,
like,
no.
I know berserkers are scary, but
Yeah, no, they didn't really do much. And then the rest of the Exalted 8 band were like hammering on the doors of the land fort. But crucially, we're in combat with the land fort because in the next turn it failed its no fallback check, which I was like, amazing. And I'd
nice.
also like ramrodded the Exalted in a way where I was like, those Terminators have to like disembark in a weird way to be able to get out so that they wouldn't be able to get angles at much else. So elsewhere, the lone berserker in combat with Invo passed his no fallback check and left, and then Invo got railed by the other land fort, like real bad.
Yeah, ate a railgun.
Yeah. Um, but the problem is he's got like nothing that can shoot the berserkers without them surging, basically guarantee surging into something, which is what happens. So they surge into the berserker who fell back from them, and obviously body slam him. And the oh yeah, so really cool. I thought it was actually pretty cool. So in the first turn, I drew Secure No Man's Land, which I deliberately didn't score because I was like, what's going to happen here is if I get into the land fort and he fails the no fallback check, he's going to disembark those Terminators and charge them into my Exalted 8 band, and I need those Exalted 8 band to live. So I didn't score Secure because I was like, I need 3 CP. I need 1 to reroll the blood dice and get Feel No Pain up, and I need 2 for -1 damage. So I don't score Secure No Man's Land deliberately, so I can discard it for a CP and then gain 1 in his turn to have my 2 CP for when he charges the Exalted 8 band, which is what happens. So I put up -1 damage, I've got the 5-up shrug, and I lose 2 wounds from a single Exalted 8 band. And then they massacre the Terminator squad, which was big cash money moment.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, it's always a shame that
huge.
those guys don't have a 4-up invul. Them always that doesn't make sense to me because you just
Yeah,
mulch them.
yeah.
Did he void armor back or something too?
He did void armor them, yeah. But
Okay, so
6 Exalted, just don't
oh
care.
yeah, they're nice little 2 wound
Yeah. Oh my
TE.
god, dude, when he was like their 2 wounds, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, you're in yeah, you're like in heaven, and you got the perfect
Yeah.
profile.
So then the Zerks that had hurt surged into his last Zerk, obviously picked him up. So then they were free to be a menace in the next turn. So it goes into my turn 2, and I'm in like a very, very good position where I've got mid-board staged rhinos. He's like fully boxed into his deployment zone, apart from some bikes which had left the board. Um, and I just continued to go all in and just dumped a lot more stuff in.
Here come the other
Um,
20 berserkers. Yep.
yeah, well, so one of the 10-man squads hung back, the Khorne squad, they hung back because I was like, I got to deal with the bikes that are going to pop out in my
Sure.
deployment zone, which they did, and then he did. But the Glavemo squad goes in, and basically over the next couple of turns, I'm just like pushing through his deployment zone. So, like, the Exalted 8-pound, they're getting whittled down, but they take out the land fort. The Zerks just push through, get into a fight with the other Terminator squad, eventually win through. That one was a bit more of a slog because of only AP1. It was a bit tougher. Um, but yeah, it's just like it's a really bad position for Derek because he's like fully locked in. He has no scoring potential. And because of the way that I've locked him in, every blood surge is going to be such a pain in the ass because it's basically going to be a guaranteed combat. Um, and there wasn't really a way of getting around it because Votann don't really have fly to just like get away from you. And every time something fell back, it's like, well, that's only moving 5 or 6 inches. So if I just roll okay on my surge, it's in a real bad place. So yeah, it was not too bad, to be honest. It was not too bad at all. So that one finished with a pretty strong win. It was 100-33, which was cathartic to get the
Yeah,
Votann chip off my shoulder.
killed it. Took your demon out back and got him.
Yeah, it was it was just one of those things where I was talking to him afterwards. I was like, look, man, I don't know what you're supposed to do on search and destroy when the world leaders roll up their blessings and go first. I'm not sure what you're really supposed to do there, you know? So it was a very tough matchup for him in that situation. I mean, like, all the stars aligned for me. So I don't really know. Like, the only moment where I was like, oh, this is like actual skill expression was when I deliberately didn't score secure. Other than that, I was like, I feel like the game is like just so heavily favored towards me right now. I'm like, I just have to like make sure I'm paying
Yeah,
attention.
and give yourself some credit. Like that's not a very obvious play to do. Like most people would say, "Ooh, give me points," and take the points right on the spot, which is something that, like for our viewers, really like try to analyze. We are a very CP heavy army. We want to be using 3 stratagems a turn if possible.
Yeah.
So really see what you're plan out your next
Yeah, I
turn and
just I
really
just
think
figured like
about.
that Terminator squad going into the Exalted, like hitting on twos, wounding on twos, like they're gonna pick them up if I don't -1 damage. And if they got picked up, if I lose the 6 Exalted for that, it's
Real
probably
bad
game over on the other side, you know?
because berserkers are not good into dealing with those terminators because they just void
Yeah.
armor and
Yeah.
yeah
Like it
yeah
took
you lost your
Playful
exalted
squad
apex.
like 2 full turns to kill the other Terminator brick, which was
If you watch my Adepticon game, which I have a Votann match on stream too, yeah, that I think my glaive mo was stuck to that 10-man Terminator brick just like you're saying
yeah.
for I think 4 or 5 combat rounds.
Yeah. I would fully believe it. Like they yeah, it was it was good. Like I'm really glad I beat Votan, to be honest. Like, they've been a chip on my shoulder for a while. And it was nice to finish the events on a win. But yeah, that was it. Finished at 3-2. Another decent showing for Nongron, I think.
What was your overall placing?
I think it was like 112th or something like that. So it was like in the mid of the 3-2 bracket.
Okay. And so any comments about the list? Anything you changed? Did you kind of like how it did?
I really like the list. I think it's really fun. It's like it's really, really suited to my personal playstyle. Like it's got the redundancy, it's got the mid board brawling, and it's got a ton of berserkers, and I just love Blood Surge so much. I just
I can't wait because I plan on painting up 30 to 40 berserkers, and I'm probably gonna try take Nongron out for a spin.
yeah, it's
Once I
fun.
get through my painting
Yeah,
project.
it definitely feels strong. I feel like in the Tau game, it's like way better than Angron list because I'm just like the two
So many
hammerheads
rail
that Will
guns. Like
had were just like we have nothing to do, so it was just like you can kill one 8-pound a turn if you want to. That's all you're going to be doing. So most of the time they were just like positioned in ways where he was like, if I draw investigate signals, they'll be the ones scoring it. And eventually he did, so that was fine. But yeah, it was I really like the list, but obviously with Pariah, like anything can happen. So
right, I'd say
we'll
like what
we'll
would
wait
you
and see.
change? But
It's hard. I can't really comment when we've got a balanced status late in like 2 days.
I personally don't expect two world leaders to get too much from Pariah. I think we're gonna get a lot of side grades
Yeah. Yeah.
to models that aren't being played. I think hopefully our princes get the
So yeah,
treatment they should have gotten in the
that's
last data slate. So
that's one point. If the prince goes down in points, he's back in the list
I
immediately.
have a I have my Angron plus footprints helm list that is sitting at like 2010 points.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of sad staring at it. If we get 10 points back, I don't care where it's from. I'm back on my original brew that I really love. That was my favorite style of world leaders that I've played so far with
Mm.
Angron plus the Helm Prince. I would love to go back to that specifically right now. Bully boys actually can't deal with the footprints at
No,
all.
no, not even
Uh,
close. Yeah,
boys are strength 5, Prince is T10. Oh, it's such a
it
nice
feels
place to
good.
be.
Yeah. I think the only thing
Um,
that like off the top of my head that I'm like, oh yeah, into Pariah, if I was to take this exact list, what would I change? I would probably drop the 3 mana 8 bands. I
really.
understand why and how they are very good, but the way that I play, the wound reroll aura almost like never comes up because I just don't play them the way that they're supposed to be played. And I know that I should play them differently, but it's just not how my brain uses the list.
And,
So what I would do is I would take them out and I would probably put in 2 more Jackal squads for scoring and Pariah.
and you know, like I've started to come to a similar conclusion too myself. At least with the list that I played the one of everything list where if it's a good unit in the World Eater roster, I had one of everything. I had the 1 6-man, 1 3-man, Glavemo +10, like one Rhino or 2 Rhinos, I guess, and Khorne, all of that stuff. I really felt like I was missing out by not having the second 8-bound squad because you want one 8-bound squad to have the ability to jump out and just murder something, right?
Yeah,
But
that's mostly
now
what
you
I was
feel
using
like,
them for.
but now you feel like you're not getting value out of your reroll ones to wound.
Yeah,
So it's like I feel like the correct answer is none or two
I
for a
think
number of
you're
eight
right.
bound.
Yeah, and I think in Pariah, dropping an 8 band squad to get 2 more Action Monkey squads feels good.
Yep, and it's just
But yeah, we'll see.
their role. You want them to be able to do both, but you need both if you're going to be
Yeah,
running them. Which I feel
yeah, for
like
sure.
none or two is probably where you want to be. Three is like if you just got money falling out of your pockets and have no idea what to spend points on. Um,
Yeah, yeah. But that was kind of it. Really well run event. One thing that I thought was really cool, um, and Zach pointed it out during the award ceremony. There was not a single um, complaint about sportsmanship from all 266 players, which is
that's
like
awesome.
it's fucking awesome. And you know what? Like, I'm not surprised. The vibe was really, really, really good. Really, really good.
That's really awesome to hear. Like my last GT that I went to up in Canada, same thing. Sportsmanship was incredibly good. So I'm really happy to see that the game's at least still being held to that standard.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was an awesome event. I was happy with 3-2. You know, nice and consistent. I feel like at this point, you know, I just want to hit something that isn't 3-2.
I mean,
It's
going
fine.
positive already is enough, especially like
Yeah.
when you're trying to pioneer like a new style and it's like a Brave New World and it's your list. You are the champion of non-Angron and one day it'll
Yeah, and
get
it's
there.
fine, yeah. It does what it says on the tin. It's a little bit too honest, I think, at the end of the day, to
I,
really push to the top.
I I feel like you're gonna be a Fire Riders detachment kind of guy.
Oh, I am. Yeah, yeah, I definitely am. 100%. Um but yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it, right? We went through the games, we went through the vibes. It was really good. Everyone who came up and said hello, shout out. Really love that stuff. If you are at an event where one of us are there in the future, come up and say hi. We love to see that kind of stuff. And
Do you
yeah, I
have any?
mean, listen, there's going to be a lot more content from us this week, right? We've got the slate coming in like
Yep,
a
we
day
got the
or
slate
two.
Thursday, and we have
Slay.
our own personal predictions for what's happening, but
Mm,
we'll save our thoughts and see if we were surprised or not.
yeah.
Do you have any more events coming up here that you want to talk about?
So I got a couple of RTTs in Ireland. I'm actually running a GT in August. And then I want to say I'd like to go to the Leeds GT, but I'm probably not going to be able to. I'm not sure yet. But then No Retreat is in September, and
Yes,
I'm working on the Brass Scorpion for that. So yeah,
that
it's
one's
gonna be awesome.
spicy.
Yeah,
Legends. Yeah, you get Mama and her babies.
hell yeah, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, I suppose one other thing is like special shout out to our patrons because I was able to go to Bristol thanks to the support that you guys give the channel. So thank you so much for that. It has been able to make sure that we get to our events and helps with all the travel and stuff. Because for me, getting to the UK, it's like every time it's a flight and hotel and train. So it's a really really big help. And if you want to become a Patreon, the link is down below. You will get access to the Patreon competitive Discord where you can get my weird ramblings about Nongron and Brian telling me that I need to be quiet a lot.
And we actually do a pretty good job of responding. We do a pretty good job in the competitive general, but like if you want that one-on-one, you want those personal questions answered, we're I'm almost always checking that channel first thing when I wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
So I will be at a GT actually coming up in 2 weeks. I have an RTT this week, and Jamie and I are actually planning on doing an GT together coming up in, I believe, September.
Nice.
So
That's gonna be
that'll be on
awesome.
the books.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of content coming.
We
I'm
got a
running
lot
Dread
of
Talons.
content. Yeah. Yeah.
This is my first Dread Talons
Oh, I'm so ready.
RTTs coming up this weekend. It's just gonna be. I even messaged the TO ahead of time. I was like, be prepared for just shock and awe because
Yeah.
that's gonna be people getting battle shocked, or it's gonna be me complaining that the mechanic doesn't work. Does it? The only two outs there.
Yeah.
I'm 2-0 with it so far. So on plastic. So I'm
Hell
really
yeah.
excited to keep going from there.
It's gonna be awesome. Yeah, it's gonna be super interesting couple of weeks. We're gonna have tons of stuff to talk about. I will have the meta roundup, the statistical analysis of the last season coming out next week as well. Plot twist, it's really funny. But we'll get there next week. And yeah, I guess we'll definitely be streaming on Balanced Status Late Day. We will probably also do a more competitive deep dive video, which will probably drop this weekend, I'm guessing. And as far as I'm aware, I will be on stream with Tiskin Podcast and Disgustingly Resilient Podcast on Sunday, talking about how the Balanced Status Slate and Pariah affects the main Chaos Legions. And there's talk that maybe we will have another special guest joining us, but I don't want to spoil that too early.
Ooh,
So
that's
yeah,
gonna be
but we'll
awesome.
see. We'll see. But I think
Well,
that's it for now, right?
we can close it out here. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, think about joining our Patreon. Please come visit the Discord. We have a really awesome community. Again, really thank you to you guys for allowing Dara to really have this opportunity to go out and just let us give you guys some more content and more feedback because like these lists and ideas we have, they only work if we're playing at events. So we really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
So I think that's all from me. Anything else from you, Dara?
Non-Angron forever, baby. It lives on.
Non-grown forever. I will hopefully be giving it a shot here
Yeah.
soon. Now that I'm like kind of in like I got my golden tickets and I'm just gonna kind of be vibing and trying everything out. I'm working on a Terminator list right now. Looking at you, Jason. But that's all. My name's Brian. This was Dara. Stay healthy, stay safe, and kill, maim, burn.